Welcome to episode, I lost track. I don't know. 5, 6.
I'm not the one to ask.
I think it's episode 8. I think it's episode 8.
I've only known it like episode 3, and then after that, I've no idea.
I think it's episode 8. 7 or 8. We'll go with that. Anyway, we were talking about emotions today.
I know.
And how they affect your health and basically everything in between.
And pretty much everything in your life. Yeah. Emotions, trauma, healing emotionally, what you can do about it, nervous system stuff, all that, and a bag of chips. All that and a bag of Sete avocado oil chips.
The queso ones.
The queso ones are the best. Anyways, okay. So, helping you live your best hot healed girl life. All right. Do you have a place you want to start with this? Because there are so many points to make.
There really is. I guess that where I usually start with my clients is because they come in expecting nutrition. You know, obviously, they hire me. They expect, you know, that's what they're expecting is the nutrition side of things. And that's what they're ready to work on. But you know, where I see true healing happen is when you combine nutrition with healing your emotions also. Because people can do nutrition work all day long for years and years and years. But if you don't get to the root of emotionally what's probably causing your health issues, because, okay, here's the thing. With a lot of hormone issues, especially like the thyroid, because I work with a lot of people with thyroid, hypothyroid, and that's what I was leaning towards was hypothyroidism. So I actually pulled it up, like specifically for the thyroid, but like the psychology behind it. So I'm just going to kind of read it because
I love it. Where did you get this from?
So this is actually from my school that I went to because they have a whole like symptom decoder thing and everything. And so they have like notes addressing like each, like adrenals or stomach or thyroid, and they address like the emotions behind each one of that.
Can I say there's also a phenomenal book out there for people that don't have access to your school notes? You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Keep going.
Yes, I love that book.
Yes.
But yeah, so the thyroid, which again is something that I see a lot, it's associated with humiliation and thoughts of never getting to do what one wants to do, which I can totally relate to that, like my younger self. So I can definitely see, you know, where I was hypothyroid. But people will often ask themselves, you know, like, when will it be my turn? But this can also indicate past experience with these feelings through trauma. So thyroid imbalances may be associated with emotional upsets caused by the breaking of friendships or family relations, depression, suspicion, anxiety, and poor elimination of harmful thoughts. So that's just the thyroid.
Yep. You're like, that's one part.
Yeah. That's one part. And then another one I see, and probably you too, is also stomach issues or colon issues.
Yep.
Even people with like autoimmune like IBS or even Crohn's.
I was going to say a lot of Crohn's and colitis. Yeah,
where it has just progressed so far. That probably started years and years ago with the emotions, because autoimmune is basically your body attacking itself. So eating itself.
It's an overactive immune system.
Yeah. Eating at itself. And I find that interesting with the stomach ones, because a lot of the times with the stomach, it's emotions like you wanting to say things or things just like really, you're holding it in your stomach, in your gut, and you just like you want to say it, but you can't, or you feel like repressed or something like that. And if you're experiencing that for years and years and years, it is probably going to manifest itself into some sort of autoimmune disease. That's just been my experience with most people with Crohn's, colitis, IBS, anything like that.
Yeah.
There's often some type of deep-rooted trauma or just something that they can't work through, that they're just holding inside.
And I want to debunk the word trauma a little bit because some people will be like, well, I don't have any trauma, right? Because you think trauma has to be like the big T trauma. I hear a lot of people refer to big T and little T trauma, right? Big T
Yep.
trauma, you think of like abuse, things like that are huge. Obviously, that makes an impact on your life. But a lot of people have been through a lot of little T trauma stuff because trauma can be anything that happens in your life. If you have an emotional reaction to it and it's a negative emotion, that's a trauma. That can be a little T trauma, right? So, because there's so many people that are like, I lived a great life.
Yeah.
We all have emotions. We've all dealt with a lot of stuff. And so I think that was just like a great place to start. I see in the stomach all the time, it's holding things in. It's holding emotions in. Typically, it's like not really saying what you feel, not really allowing yourself to feel.
Yep.
I also notice the liver a lot is anger. Liver holds anger.
Yep.
And so we're getting into this, but every single organ system, whatever, has an emotional cause or an emotional tie as much as it does a physical, right? I completely agree with you. I think the magic happens when you find the physical, the emotional, you merge them together. And that is where you find that real healing, right? When you're able to do that. Because I know personally, I did about 4 years of like candida cleanses of everything physical, changed my diet. I say all the time, like, if you told me I had to eat 4 foods the rest of my life, I would have done it. Like, I tried to diet harder. I took every supplement. I was so strict, so regimented because that's just easy for me.
Yeah.
I did all the easy stuff. I never addressed the hard stuff, right? The emotional stuff is a lot less tangible.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I see with everyone. Like, that's,
So much
they're
harder.
like, I can take supplements, I
Yep.
can change my diet, but when you try to and get them to, and there's some people obviously that they're like, I'm 100% ready, like, let's do this.
Yes.
But a lot of the times I will get a little pushback when I bring up healing emotions, just because it is like, if you actually get into it and work through it, most people cry. Like,
Hard shit. Oh yeah.
yeah, when they actually go through and think about, because a lot of it, at least for me, is I see a lot of childhood stuff. So it's really
Yeah.
not something that they've thought of in a long time, but when they really think about what is triggering this emotion in me that keeps coming up over and over, like, what happened that made me have a reaction to something like this. And a lot of the times it's like childhood or teenager where something happened.
Yeah. And you don't even think about it because, like you said, it might be repressed. Or for some people, it's a little T trauma that they don't associate as being a trauma.
Well, as a child, I mean, you have a negative reaction to it, but you're not, as a child, you're not going to be like, well, that was a trauma. Like,
Exactly.
that's
Unless it is
affecting me
something like
emotionally.
physical abuse or something like
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. And that's what, obviously most people will realize that's a trauma, but, it could be something as simple as, like, you were really excited for something you did, or like really proud of something you did, and you were really excited to show it to someone and they just kind of pushed it to the side or something like that. And it doesn't sound big in your head, but as a kid, if it felt really big to you and then you just kind of get rejected for it,
Yeah.
it's going to,
It creates a negative reaction.
yeah, and
Your body imprints it. Your
yeah, and you're
subconscious
going to
holds
be
on to
less
it.
likely to want to project your opinions or share your opinions or share your ideas further on down the line, because if that rejection really affected you, then you don't want to go through that again.
So on that note, the subconscious mind, right? That's where this is all rooted. The subconscious mind, as we know, it's not like our conscious mind, right? It's not everything that you are fully aware of, but it rules about 80% of what we do on a daily basis, which is, they say 80 to 90. That's like everything. We're doing everything regimented because you don't even, like, I was thirsty. I got up and I got a cup of water. I didn't think about it. I just did it because that's what you do, right? Things like that. Or like when you wake up, you go brush your teeth, all that stuff. It may not necessarily be like you are choosing to do it, you just do it. Those are all the easiest examples, right? But then, obviously, with our subconscious mind ruling everything, that goes all the way back to the beginning, like we were saying, when you were children, all that stuff. So that there's just so much subconscious work that has to be done within healing. A lot of people I find don't believe they can heal, even though they'll say out loud, no, I'm looking for my healing. Of course, I've spent all this money, but like when it gets down to it, they don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, I've known this for the past 5 years. I've known this for the past 10 years, 15 years. I don't know any different. And I'm like, okay, so we have to create your new normal now in your
Mm-hmm.
head before you can even live it out. Your mind has to believe it before you can get there,
Yep.
which is like the hardest thing for everyone to get into, right? Because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, how can I believe it if I've never seen it? I'm like, you have to.
Yep. You just, yeah, like you said, you have to. And I mean, I think for me, and I know I've heard you say this too, emotions are the hardest thing to work through.
Oh
Like,
my God. Yeah.
I 100% avoided it for as long as I could because, like, I was like, I can just get here through diet and supplements.
And I
And
didn't have any issues
yeah,
emotionally.
exactly. Well, I knew I did,
Well,
but
I guess I probably did too. I thought I had worked through them, right? But I
hmm
like hadn't really done any work around it. Just in my head, I was like, I've talked about it, I've worked on it, which no.
yeah. I mean, same. Like, there was a point where I was like, yeah, I definitely worked through this. Like, I'm good. And then it's like 6 months down the road and the same issues keep resurfacing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, maybe, I actually have to go a little bit deeper and do some deeper work here.
For me, that's what it was. Cause like I said, the emotions were hard. And I thought, well, I had a great childhood, right? Like I did get sick as a young kid. But other than that, like had a great childhood. In high school, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. But then, like, once we broke up when I was in college, I talked to everyone about it all the time. And I was like, I worked on that. I talked to everyone. I got it out, right? I did not hold it in by any stretch of the imagination, but that was not nearly enough. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like me doing trauma work, me doing internal work, whatever that means to you, right? Like sitting with yourself, meditating, journaling, therapy, you name it, any sort of other emotional work. I didn't do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, talking about it was not enough for me.
Exactly. And yeah, a lot of people think that too. They're like, well, if I just talk about it, like that releases it, right? It can
And
help. It definitely helps.
yeah, everything is so individualized, like anything.
Mm-hmm.
It can help. For some people, it also can do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, talking about it can quite literally trigger physical reactions in their body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Panic attacks, you name it. I have someone I know who subconsciously drank and didn't remember it because anytime something, it was a traumatic event in their life, anytime it would get brought up, they would reach to drink and then not remember it.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Yeah. And
That's how much your subconscious
yeah,
belief rules.
that's just a big sign of, yeah, how much your emotions actually affect your reactions.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, these are larger examples, but just to, in the book, I'm going to throw a couple books at you because if you want to learn more about this, or if you want to, maybe you're not sure which way you want to go with this, right? Because there's so many different ways to heal emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like we say with practitioners, there's like neurofeedback. You can do that. You can do primal trust. I know people do brain rewiring. I dabbled in brain rewiring for a little. I like MBSR, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like, I want to read more about all of it and understand it, The Body Keeps the Score is a great book too.
Yes.
And in that book, they talk about a girl who was sexually assaulted and she would sleepwalk and eat in the middle of the night. And she ended up being obese because of it. And she was subconsciously trying to make herself unattractive to the opposite sex. Like things like this, you don't, how was she supposed to know what she was doing?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't. Your
Yeah.
subconscious and your mind rules everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, The Body Keeps the Score is good, but there is some like dark moments in it. Like they talk about some of people's trauma, and sometimes personally, I'm not the best at reading those things. I don't really like it. I can't watch scary movies. I can barely watch Hocus Pocus. I'm a baby. I'm very sensitive to these things. So
Yeah,
like
one of
just
those
one
books that needs to come with a trigger warning.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm
because
like
yeah,
that's not even something I dealt with. It's just that
mm-hmm.
personally when I read about other people's stuff I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, it can. I mean, it can be hard to, but I think for me, I like knowing all of the ranges, like of what people go through and what can go through and like what happens,
mm-hmm.
because then I can better explain to someone else who might be going through something like
Yeah.
that. But
That makes complete sense. Yeah, I've only dealt with one person that was really an extreme case. All the other ones, it's mostly not believing they can heal, although they're like, because hear me out, right? You go through a month of protocol, 2 months of a protocol, maybe you start getting better. And then some people self sabotage. Some people will do things like binge eat, or they'll just be like, well, it's not going to keep going like this, right? It's going to get worse. Or others, you'll get to whatever month in and you'll be like, well, I'm not seeing any changes.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, it's all internal. Or they're like, well, I'm still having symptoms. And I'm like, all right, well, how long did it take for you to get sick? Do you believe that you can heal? Because they're like, well, how can I believe I can heal if I'm seeing all these symptoms? And I'm like, it's hard, right?
I mean, like we just mentioned with the stomach stuff and something like that, those emotions have probably been around for 10
Years.
plus years or more. So if it takes you that long to get sick, you're not just going to heal, and probably not just going to heal in 3 months. I mean, if you're a lucky case, you might see major improvements in 3 months, but full healing is probably not going to happen that quickly.
No, it takes, and I find it just takes so much long to unwire that trauma, to rewire other positive experiences, just because it's the deep stuff.
And your brain has been going to that reaction for so long.
And your body holds on to it and it imprints, and you just don't even realize.
Yeah. And we're not just like preaching at you here. We've been through it. At least I have definitely been through
no,
it.
we've been through it.
We're not just like sitting here and being like, you need to do this and this and this. Like, no, I still constantly work through emotions.
I cried earlier today to fight song, working through my emotions.
Music is great for working through emotions. It's
So
the
good.
best.
Yeah. Because I've been going through a lot with a couple of my loved ones who are working through subconscious stuff with their healing. And so it's so hard for me because I have no control over it, right? When it's someone you love and you care about so much, and you cannot do a damn thing about their subconscious mind.
Yeah.
That is not my work to be done.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest when
Oh my
when it's
gosh.
someone that's super close to you.
Oh my
It's
God.
definitely so much harder.
It has been quite literally physically painful for me at times. So like I'm going through a lot of emotions around that too. And I'm like, what the fuck? I healed a bunch of emotions and now I'm still going through more of it, which like, sorry if you don't like the F word, I apologize, but that's how I felt.
It's
That's
okay.
how
The
I feel
podcast
sometimes.
is rated explicit, so you're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I saw it was rated explicit and I was like, oh, that's probably me. I'm sorry.
Reed looks at it and he's like, "Hey guys, do you know your podcast is rated explicit?" And I was
I
like,
knew.
"Well, yeah, I did that on purpose because we talk about shit." So
I was gonna say we literally talked about poop for like half of the podcast.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, no.
there's your
So
laugh in the middle of
right
trauma.
in the middle of this deep conversation. No, because we both truly get it. And like I said, I'm still going through it because a loved one of mine is going through it. And I am not yet at a point where I can completely detach from it because I just care so much. And I don't know that I'll ever be at a point where I can completely detach from
I
it.
was
Like
gonna say I mean, I guess depending on your own emotions, but like for me, I'm such an empath and I'm so
same.
sensitive. I pick up other people's emotions like a magnet.
Yeah. And when
It's
it's someone you
awful, but
unconditionally love,
yeah.
that'll
Yeah, I
get
don't
it.
think you can ever detach from that unless you just would totally shut the person out of your life.
Exactly. And I'm trying to distance myself a little bit from it. And the fact that I don't think that I can heal this because I can't. That's just the truth. It's not something that I can do. It's not my work to be done. So, in that sense, I'm trying to sort of distance myself from it. But like I said, I'm not detached from it. Like I'm still going through the weeds. I'm like, and this is years later. So, this is like your fun newsflash that practitioners still go through a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's why we're practitioners. Because we
And
went through
it's
it all and we want to help you guys
we went through it
do
all.
it.
And then I feel like sometimes God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is like, I think you need another lesson to take to your clients. And I'm like, another?
We always have to be learning, so it makes us better practitioners.
Literally, I'm like, you sure I need one more? Like, because I think I'm good.
Yeah, like I'm good for now. Check again, check back in a year. We'll see.
I know.
Maybe I need more knowledge in a year.
That's literally how it works. So like don't ever think that your practitioners have it all together. Don't ever think that we are. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of knowledge, right? We've done a lot of research, but like we do not have it all together. There is,
And personally, I would want a practitioner that's always learning.
yeah.
I don't want someone that's just going to be like, well, I know what I know, and that's it. Because if
Yeah.
I don't know something, I'm going to go find it out for you. If you have a
Yeah.
question, I will go research it and find out the answer for you.
Exactly. And we have access to lots of research knowledge, Cellcore, other practitioners, all that stuff, like so much. So that's like, you always want someone that's like, if I don't know it, I will figure it out. Everything is figure outable.
Yeah, that should be the answer that you get from someone, not just some BS answer, like making up or pretending they know what they're talking about. Like if you have a
Mm-hmm.
question and they don't know, I would hope they would tell you, look, I don't know, but I will find out for you and
Yeah.
get you the answer.
Yeah, that happens to me on some of my calls because obviously I want all the answers on the spot, but I'm like, if that's something I've never seen before, I have to get back to you on that.
Yeah. And I feel like people appreciate that.
Yeah. Because they're like, okay, at least I know you'll be doing the research for me. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
But we will find it out. So, I want you to talk about MBSR a little bit
Okay.
because that's not something that I have dabbled in at all, other than like watching a few YouTube videos on it.
Okay. So it stands for Mind, Body, Spirit Release. I, for a while, knew I wanted to incorporate something emotional into my practice. I never really was fully aware of what. I didn't know if I wanted to do brain rewiring or maybe Reiki or something like that, but nothing ever really resonated with me. Like it took me, I liked them. I had people do them on me, but it was just never the thing I thought I wanted to until I found MBSR. And it's a little bit complicated to explain, but so if you believe in muscle testing, I firmly believe in muscle testing, right? We're all quantumly entangled. Literally, energy is everything. So I muscle test people for trapped emotions, blocks to positive emotions, any sort of like organs, glands, pathogens, a lot of other limiting beliefs, things like that. I muscle test them for whatever they're resonating with for this specific um like affirmation. We'll start with an intention. That's what I mean. We start with an intention like I aspire to be abundantly successful, healthy, blah blah blah, whatever that is. And then I muscle test them for what they need to clear within that. So it's like a whole binder full of stuff, right? All of those emotions, all of this trapped stuff could be an event too. A lot of people have to clear events. Muscle test them for it, whatever they resonate for. And then I clear them at the very end with like an imprinted laser on myself. So like I'm using myself as a proxy, right? It's very similar to muscle testing, how like you can use someone as a proxy. I use this frequency imprinted laser. I clear myself on the meridians, on the third eye, all the stuff, and on the organs and the glands that they tested for. And then it quite literally creates detox reactions in most people because when you're clearing emotions, it can create a strong detox reactions. We also clear emotions within organs sometimes. And like I said, pathogens like bacteria, parasites, yeast, biofilms, whatever, whatever. So I always, I just struggle to talk about it. I think I haven't found that like sweet spot yet because to some people it's not going to hit at all, right? You're going to be like, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But to people who've experienced energy work in any form, it does make sense to you, right? Because you know how things can be done through energy, like it just is. And
Yeah.
then through frequency imprinted laser. If you had seen the amount of liver flukes I've cleared from one of my MBSR sessions, you would know that it was not all out there. And then at the end, I give you or some whoever the client is like homework, like meditations, maybe a certain prayer, maybe a certain book to read, sometimes essential oils or something just to like help calm or like other nervous system supportive tools like breath work and all that good stuff. I found that my clients that so everyone has a different package in my practice. I just want everyone to do what feels best for them. The clients that do MBSR in conjunction with all of the physical stuff are the ones that do the best, right? Because they are the ones that are, there is physical work to be done to release those trapped emotions, limiting beliefs, emotional blocks, trauma, yada, yada, you name it.
Yeah. That would be the same here.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the people who do that.
because like we were talking about, like I think we do a little bit different emotional work. Like I definitely do MBSR, but also with the clients that don't want it, I will have them like address things and maybe do affirmations or mantras to themselves too. But some people, because I don't have the training and like what you did for like it being in specific organs, glands, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't want to do that work. A lot of
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, okay. And then we meet the next month and they're like, so I'm sleeping better, haven't really done that. And I'm like, I can't force you to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot force you to work on the emotional aspect. But even something as small as an affirmation or a meditation every single day goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. It really does. You just
Mm-hmm.
post a post-it note to your mirror where you're brushing your teeth every day. Or, I even tell people there's so many like affirmation videos on YouTube, just turn it on and have it in the background.
Yeah.
Um, if you're
Or
taking
like
like a,
solfeggio frequencies.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're doing something for like 20 minutes or whatever, just put that on in the background and like we are talking about, your subconscious will absorb that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I find the most, so I love an affirmation because when you do them right, they're truly very, very powerful. Like a lot of people will just say it and not believe it and just, I am wealthy, I
mm-hmm.
am abundant. And like when you do it like that, it's never going to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you say it and you freaking believe it, and some people are like, how am I supposed to believe it if I don't believe it? Okay. So I get them to think about something positive first. I'm like, think of something positive, a positive memory, your dog, your kid, whatever gets you like happy and like in that sort of state. And then start saying your affirmations. So you're already in that state.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, it works wonders. They are so, if that's all that you can do, because you're like, I can't meditate, I can't sit still. One, I tell almost every single person that says I can't meditate, that is a whole other can of worms. If you truly cannot sit still for 5-10 minutes with your thoughts, I hate to say it, but that's why you're sick, right? If you can't sit
Mm-hmm.
still with your thoughts for 5 to 10 minutes.
That's 100% true. That what you just said right there. If you can't sit still with your thoughts, that's why you're sick.
Yeah, I was one of those people. I
Mm-hmm.
get it. My first yoga class, I was talking to my friends the entire time. I was laughing, I was joking. And then I had some like low back pain at the time, but my back felt so much better after. So that's why I kept going back. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yoga's so slow. How do I move this slow? My body wants to move fast. The amount of people that have told me this, and I'm like, I get it because I was the same way. My body wants to move fast. I can't move slow. Boring.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and I went back and I ended up liking it. I ended up being a yoga instructor. Same with meditation. I couldn't sit still. I
Mm-hmm.
started with, I think guided meditations are a great thing to get you in the door because a lot of people can't just sit still in the silence. They have to
Mm-hmm.
start with a guided meditation first. Okay, no shame in that game, right?
Yeah.
It's a great place to start. 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sit still. I was the same way. And then I went through a really, really rough breakup and I was like, okay, I know that this is good for me to be with my thoughts for 5 to 10 minutes instead of distracting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing the Calm app, the guided meditations. Every time I would start to get anxious and start to get worked up, I would be like, this is 10 minutes. I even did it at work. I would sit at my desk and hope
Mm-hmm.
that no one came and tapped me on the shoulder. But that's what helped me calm down. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
still a very high energy person, right? Don't get me wrong. But now I can meditate and now I have the ability to slow down instead of being like, must move fast.
Yeah. You need that balance for sure. Um, and I have to mention too, I like EFT tapping also because of that
Ooh,
reason. Because, like you said, not everybody's gonna resonate with the MBSR. Like it's just hard for them to wrap their mind
mm-hmm.
around. But what I do love about EFT is because, again, you can go to YouTube and find an
Yeah.
EFT tapping for almost anything. And so if you don't know what EFT is, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it's basically saying an affirmation or saying something that you want to release, and then you tap certain points on your body, and it helps your body release those emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not usually very long, they're maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. Some of them are even 3 minutes. You can just do it as many times as you want, but it works really well and it's really easy for people to do. Again, because you have someone there that you're just saying it with.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also books you can get on that too if you wanted to do a whole book and just go through everything. But you can find the specific things if there's something specific that you want to address, because I have a lot of people that have issues, like childhood issues with their parents or one parent in specific, and you can just like release this, like I felt this way with my dad or I felt this way with my mom. You just release those emotions through the tapping. And I will have people tell me that they just after 5 minutes they will feel so much better, or they'll start crying or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. That's the thing. Sometimes you need a more active form of like clearing stuff, and sometimes you need something that's like more subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's something for everyone because there's so many different ways to undo this stuff. And I tell everyone because like you can look into primal trust. I've heard great things about it, never done it. You can look into brain rewiring. I know quite a few brain rewiring coaches. Again, I've done it. It never really hit with me
Mm-hmm.
because I had to bring up the negative emotions. So personally, I'm not someone who can bring up the negative emotions. It usually sends me down a spiral.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And that happens to a lot of people, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why therapy never hit well with me because I can talk about it when I want to all the time, but when I'm being forced to,
It
it's a
just
lot
kind of
for
shuts
me.
me down.
Yeah.
Like when
And
I.
that's the same thing. Journaling was hard for me for a while until I started finding gratitude journaling prompts because
Mm-hmm.
I would just write a bunch of like stream of consciousness and it was always negative and then I would feel worse after because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it just brought up all this negativity. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying you need to be positive all the time, right? That's not at all what I'm saying. But like journaling typically should feel like a release.
Mm-hmm.
It should feel like I put it there, I feel better. For me, it was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff that just came out. And I feel like I need to just lay in bed and cry and be catatonic for an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that.
And so it's like there's a million different ways to clear this stuff. Like you said, tapping. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard of it, never done it. I don't know why, honestly.
It's. I guess I just like it because it's very easy for people to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's usually very short if you're just honing in on something specific,
Yeah,
and they can just go to YouTube and do it along with whomever is doing it on YouTube.
I love that. I also love visualizations because so our body can't perceive the difference between our thoughts and our reality. Your
Mm-hmm.
body sees it all the same, right? If you're picturing something bad happening, it doesn't know if it's your reality or if it's your brain playing
Mm-hmm.
tricks on you. So that's why I love visualizations because we can use that in a positive sense, right? Because you can quite literally visualize what you want, how you want to feel. But again, you have to feel it. When you're visualizing, you can't just see it, you have to feel it.
Yeah.
And you can help yourself, again, slowly turn into that person that you want to be, slowly recover from those things that you want to recover from. All this stuff is not a very, very quick one and done type of process. Never is.
Mm-hmm.
It is a process, but I found visualizations to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's so many different modalities.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you do just have to find the one that
What works
resonates
for
with
you?
you, the one that you're going to stick to
Yeah.
and do. But
Yeah.
there is a lot of them out there, so there will be something for you.
And I want to go back to the whole meditation thing. I'm not hating on you if you are someone who you're like, I can't meditate. Maybe you can't, but if you're not good at meditating, that's okay. But as long as you're someone who's able to slow down, like I was someone who was like, must go fast all the time, can't be slow.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had clients like that. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean by if you can't meditate like that, that's if you're someone who's like a big yogi, but you're like, I can't sit and listen to nothing, but like yoga's very meditative, that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm also a big fan of walking meditation,
Mm-hmm.
where you just do a very slow walk. You're outside with no distractions, or maybe you do just put the affirmations in your ears, like
Yeah.
whatever you're listening to, do the affirmations, do the music, but just kind of quiet your mind down where you're not listening to a podcast, you're not listening to
You're
pump
on the
you up
phone.
music.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
all
you're
that stuff.
just calming down for a little bit.
Yeah. It's like quieting the world, quieting your thoughts, just allowing yourself to be. and not do.
Yeah. Because I don't usually have a problem sitting and meditating. I have a problem falling asleep after that. But I do really well just being outside. Like if I can sit outside and meditate much, much easier than I can sit in the house and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also do just love walking and just being very aware of nature and just kind of absorbing the nature sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that is a good form of meditation.
Yeah, it's meditative. I also love breath work. Again, it's more active, but it does get the same vibe, right? Like you're listening to someone teach you how to breathe, what to think about, how to infuse your breath, like inhale, exhale, more active, but it's still getting you into a very meditative state. Like I said, or you could do, I still love me some good old guided meditations. I still do. I
Yeah.
can meditate on my own, but it also depends. Sometimes when I have squirrel brain, I do need a guided meditation to like close it out, right? Because I'm like, we need to listen to someone to get me out of my own head.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, that's, I think, probably the majority of what I do is definitely guided something or other. Either that or the music.
Yeah, I love that too. I do love to meditate to solfeggio frequencies too. So they're just like higher hertz frequencies that are like healing frequencies.
Yeah. I think like 525 hertz or something like that
I love
is
528.
one
It's my
of the
fave.
128. Yeah.
I was listening to it this morning on my walk. So I'm like, that's my personal fave. There are other ones too, but 528 is my favorite.
Yeah, I turn those on for my dogs a lot. Like if it's
So cute.
thunderstorming or they're just stressed out because my one dog, it was thunderstorming last night, so kept me awake like 2 hours. But I will turn that on for her, and it like doesn't totally de-stress her, but it helps.
I'm sure. Do you have a red light? Because I know a lot of people,
I don't
okay,
have a red
they
light.
say it calms
It's
their
on my
dogs.
list. It's on my
No,
list.
it's fine. Well,
I
none of
have a
us are
salt
supposed
lamp,
to, so
which is funny because she loves to sit next to the salt lamp because I used to have it before I moved here. I used to have it right next to my bed
mhm.
on my nightstand, and she would literally get right up on the bed right next to it and just kind of like put her face right next to the salt lamp. So
That's
I
so
can see
cute.
that.
Yeah, I've heard great things about people who they say their dogs literally cuddle up to them while they're doing red light and stuff. I don't have a pup one day, but
Would recommend. Would
yeah,
recommend a
one
pup.
day when I have a yard. That's just
Yeah.
we just don't want to have to, especially when it's a puppy and you have to walk it all the time.
I mean, I'm a fan of adopting a little bit like a dog that's out of the puppy phase,
That's fair.
but also love puppies. So,
Yeah. I'm just like allergic to dogs with fur, not hair. So you don't typically find too many of those to adopt. Like,
no, you find them a little more now, I guess, but yeah, it would be harder.
I know. I've like looked and every time they just don't exist. And I understand because people spend a lot of money on those dogs typically. So if you're spending a lot of money, you would imagine that you're not going to
Yeah.
neglect. But we don't need to talk about that. That makes me think about Lemon
Dogs are
and
great for your mental health, just
they are.
tying it all in there.
Oh, they are. Because they're unconditional love.
And just petting them automatically de-stresses you. Or cats, whatever you're into. Just petting
Yeah,
something soft and warm.
So we talked a little bit about the books. I want to actually get back to that just really quickly because if anyone wants any more resources, right? You're like, this was interesting, but obviously this is only the tip of the iceberg, right? We did about as much as we could do. Like I said, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay is great. It also in the back has similar to what you were saying before. It's like a glossary. So if you have a specific ailment, organ, whatever, like you can look up what the emotional tie to it is. Again, that doesn't mean 100% yours, but a lot of people resonate with those.
Yeah.
Body Keeps a Score by, it's right in front of me, Bessel van der Kolk. Don't know. It's just really good for explaining like how the body holds on to trauma and stuff. Again, never finished it just because it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these educational books are, right? Like it's not something you sit and read in one sitting.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to take in. But I don't know if there should be any trigger warnings in there because like I said, I didn't fully get through it, but there are some like not so happy things, but you would imagine that about a book about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, started, never finished. I have a book problem. I start and don't finish if they get boring. Some of the educational books I never finish just because I'm like, there are so many things to learn about. But Emotion Code by Bradley Nelson, another thing, literally how to release your trapped emotions. I was doing a reel about this. That's why they're all right next to me. And then accessing the healing power of the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve can help a lot with nervous system dominance and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah,
another
I love
book
that.
by Stanley Rosenberg. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Because that is probably something that you can do more active that can get you into more of a parasympathetic state, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as much around the emotions, but the nervous system has a lot to do with our healing as well.
Yeah.
Which I guess.
Just touching on the vagus nerve really quickly. That's actually why a lot of people go to smoking habits or like something
Huh.
to do with smoking because smoking causes them to slow down because they're inhaling. So they're doing that breathing
Mm.
and that triggers their vagus nerve. So
Oh,
I find that
interesting.
very interesting because, you know, a lot of people, maybe not so common now, like with our
Yeah.
generation, but the older generation, a lot of people picked up cigarettes from like PTSD or something traumatic that happened, or, you know, they just kind of grew up around it, but they're subconsciously relaxing their vagus nerve every time they do it. And that's another reason why it's so hard to quit.
That's
Is
so interesting.
yeah, it's because of that inhale breath that they're doing.
Yeah.
They're slowing their body down, they're
It
slowing their
gets you
mind
into a
down.
parasympathetic state.
Yeah. And that's another reason it's not just the nicotine, they're addicted to it's it's how they relax themselves. It's the only way that they
Yeah.
know to relax themselves.
That makes so much sense though.
And humming, you know, you hear people like humming under their breath, that stimulates your vagus nerve.
Yeah.
I
Humming
do
and
that all the
gurgling.
time. Yeah, I do that all the time. And when I find myself just humming over and over, I'm like, what am I stressing out about? Like, why am I, why am I having to do this? Like, why am I
You
subconsciously
know. Yeah,
humming? Yeah.
subconscious.
Hmm. And
I do the toothpicks to the sternum.
really,
That's my favorite one. Or nails. I guess it's the same thing.
yeah, I was
It's
going to say, I find myself doing this a lot when I get really
or I guess you
stressed
can do it
out.
to the bones behind your ears too, but my
Hmm.
ears are covered right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the vagus nerve a lot. I find it very fascinating, like the little things that people do that bring their parasympathetic
Yeah.
into play.
Yeah.
And that's another reason my kids, you know, like suck their thumb for a long time too, because that stimulates your vagus nerve, like
Hmm.
sucking.
Yeah, so it's like they are in a sympathetic fight or flight state and it brings them
Hmm.
back to. So I guess let's touch upon just sympathetic and parasympathetic for those that don't know real quick, because if you have no idea what we've been saying. So the sympathetic state is fight or flight, right? It's when your body is doing, going. You are not relaxed at all. I feel like fight or flight, you get that from it, right? If you were a caveman, that's when you're running from a tiger and a lot of other things in your body shut down. Your digestion shuts down, your hormones shut down, hair growth, all of that, because your body doesn't need that. It
Hmm.
needs to survive in the here and now. It's
Yep.
this moment. Parasympathetic is the opposite. It's rest and digest. So that's why a lot of people say like get into a parasympathetic state before you eat. Helps your body secrete digestive juices, all of that stuff. It also, your body cannot heal in a sympathetic state. It can't heal when it's up here all the time. It's worried, all that stuff. It can
Hmm.
only heal when it's starting to rest. That was the brief. I feel like you definitely have more to add just because that's like my 3 second.
I mean, I feel like that was pretty concise. I don't just for people to absorb it, you know, like
That, yeah,
to
that's why I'm
to
like,
yeah. I mean, we could obviously go much more in
so
depth
much.
with it, but that's your That's your basic of how
Yeah.
it functions. Like when you're sleeping, you're in a parasympathetic state
Mm-hmm.
because your body's not stressed out. And you, like you just said, you cannot survive if you're constantly at a sympathetic state. If you can't sleep, if you have insomnia, if your mind is always racing, you're probably not in a parasympathetic state very
Yeah.
often. And again, that's why sleeping is so healing, because your body's in that parasympathetic state. So
Mm-hmm.
it is calming down. It is able to actually focus on healing rather than focus on everything else that you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about.
And so, like I said, I was definitely in a sympathetic state, right? I couldn't sit down, couldn't be with my thoughts, couldn't stop and do yoga. I was like, must move fast. Like that's sympathetic. That's a prime case
Yeah.
of sympathetic dominance, right? And things that bring you into that parasympathetic state, like you said, breath work, meditation, anything that is just sort of like relaxing, time out in nature, all of that stuff that you feel yourself start. That's why people like take a deep breath because it relaxes you.
Yep.
Like maybe not one, maybe take 2, 3, 5.
Actually, make sure you're taking a deep breath too, because so many people
Yeah.
just, they
Shallow.
like barely bring it into their chest. No, bring it all the way into your stomach. Like feel it.
Yeah. So to get into a parasympathetic state, we're not saying you have to be that way all the time, right? But that's how you heal when your body is in a parasympathetic state.
Yep.
It's how you digest. That's when your body can focus on all of the what it considers not essential things. Like I said, digestion, hormones, hair growth. So hormones and hair growth are literally the last things. When you're healing, those are the last things that get done.
Yep.
When people are like, my hair is falling out in clumps, it's not gonna, that's your body it sees that as absolutely not essential. Same for hormones. Your body is not ready to birth a baby.
Yep.
That's what your period is. When you're like, oh, I've lost my period for so long. Yeah, your body's not ovulating because it's like, come on,
We
there's a
cannot
lot
handle,
of
we can't handle a baby right now.
it's like we can't handle anything.
We can
cannot
barely
a
handle
baby.
you, so
Yeah.
definitely not growing another human.
So those are very non-essential things. And also digestion, right? Like you're not digesting 24/7. So sit down, take a couple of breaths before you eat.
Yeah.
Don't scroll through your phone. Don't stare
Don't,
blankly at your TV.
yeah, don't, or watch something that's like anxiety causing,
For me,
because there's
that's
so
American
many.
Ninja Warrior. I'm not even
I feel like
joking.
there's so many shows out there that they're just like, ugh, it's
Yeah.
like, just
They
makes
stress
you
if a
anxious
show
while you're
stresses
watching
you
it.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't watch that while you're.
Don't watch that.
I used to be really guilty. I mean, I'm still guilty sometimes of scrolling my phone while I eat. I'm trying to be better about
too.
that. I used to read all the time while I was eating. I don't know if that's quite the same, but I would every single day while I was eating my lunch, I'd be reading a book or something like that. So I don't know.
I mean, as long as it's not like anxiety inducing, like for some people, reading is very calming, depending on what you're
I mean,
reading.
for me, I was mostly reading fiction.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
yeah.
that's not as bad. They just like the only difference is like trying to be mindful of what you're eating, right? Like not just focusing on the reading, not on what you're doing, because I find that's like one of the main issues for people when they're like, oh, I have digestive issues, and they literally don't even chew enough. They just don't
you just like
slow down.
inhale your food. My
like,
husband
did you
does that
chew?
all the time. I'm constantly asking him, I'm like, did you even chew that, or did you just like vacuum suck it up? It's like
My boyfriend's brother ate a piece of pumpkin pie in 3 bites, and I almost pooped myself. I was like, how did you physically do that?
yeah. And then he's like, oh, my stomach hurts. I have heartburn. And I'm like, well,
You're like,
that's your
"Sir."
own fault. You know, I have told you so many times how to avoid that problem, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I say to
And
a lot
again,
of
I
people
think
how
that
you eat.
yeah, that goes back to a childhood thing though for him, because it used to be he said like with his parents, I guess his dad would always eat really fast, and then they would tell him, well, the last person between him and his brother, the person who doesn't like hasn't finished all their food, like the last person to finish their food has to clean up the dishes, because I guess his little brother was really slow. And so
Oh,
they were trying to speed him up by telling him that. And so Reed's like, I would eat really fast so I wouldn't have to clean up. But then it wouldn't work because my little brother would just eat slow anyway. So,
yeah. So now he's wired to think that he has to eat fast.
yep.
My parents used to say I was the slowest eating child in the whole world, and nothing has changed. I will take 45 minutes to eat my lunch. Because when we used to have a whole lunch hour, people would be like, how are you still eating? And I'm like, I don't know. I eat more food than you, which I
Yeah.
did, but that wasn't why.
I'm always like, sometimes I get embarrassed because I'll go out with people and they're all like done and I've barely gotten halfway through my food. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I physically cannot eat faster than this.
Half the time, I feel like I truly can't eat faster. I'm like, how are your digestive juices working right now? Mine need me to eat and chew.
Yeah, I will feel just pure crap if I inhaled as fast as most of the people I know.
3 bites for a piece of pumpkin pie. I
I mean, was it
also,
was it a small piece or was it a big
no, I
piece? Okay.
also, I'm not gonna lie, I encouraged it because it was blowing my mind. Like I looked at him and he took 2 bites and they were humongous. And I was like, bet you can't eat that in 3. And he proved me wrong. But it was quite literally one of the scariest things. Cause then he's like, I didn't really want to do it in 3, but you said I couldn't. And I was like, well, so that's why we're talking about parasympathetic state, because we want you to chew. How can you get into that before you eat? You can take a couple breaths. One of the greatest ways to get yourself ready to eat a meal is by cooking it. Because your body, when you smell the food start to cook, your digestive juices start to get going in your body. Like you salivate, right? Your digestive enzymes, your salivary amylase starts producing. Or, like I said, chew slowly. You can rub the bones behind the back of your ears, take a couple of deep breaths. You can sniff your food. I don't do that, but some people love it. I think it's great. You got any other tips? I always say it's how you eat is almost as important as what you eat.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, no, I think those were good tips. I think we covered quite a bit. We're over the hour mark, I
Yeah.
think.
I think we're like
So,
right there.
yeah, I feel like that was a good episode. Pretty concise about
We
most
packed a lot
things.
in.
Yeah, we didn't go off track too much.
Only a little bit at the end.
Only a little bit. That always
But
happens. I don't know.
but like let's be real, it was still pretty intact. It
Yeah.
was what we were talking about.
I feel like every episode we do, I'm like, this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites.
Now you sound like me. Everything's my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's because it's true. Where can the people find you?
You can find me at Emily Joy Wellness on Instagram, website, YouTube, all the places. What about you?
At the THE Rooted in Health. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on my website.
And we will also leave these linked in the bio as well. So
Yeah.
you can connect with both of us, one of us, whichever one you want. And if you want to leave a rating, subscribe, leave a review, we would absolutely love that. And if you're on YouTube, drop a comment, like the video. We appreciate everything because trying to stay relevant in the algorithm these days is a tough job. So please help us out.
Yeah. And we want to know what you guys want to hear about. Like I said, I say this every single episode and I'm going to keep saying it. We just go by what we think we would want to hear about, but by what's going on in our practices. What do you want to hear? Tell us.
Yeah.
Woo.
Either leave it in the comment or send us a DM.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to do. We want to make episodes for you guys.